All right, everybody. Well, welcome to another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I am stoked today to have Tony Triggiano on the podcast, the CEO and founder of Tony's Peanuts. If you have not heard of Tony's Peanuts, we'll obviously get into it today. It's my new favorite peanut butter, by the way, not to totally, blow smoke up you there, but it's
We love
damn
that.
good, and we'll dive into it. But welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Do you want to give everyone just a little intro to you and your brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, Tony Peanuts has been about pretty new, about 10, 12 months in the making now. And I started it kind of as a COVID invention, but I guess it's been a little bit of in the making for multiple years. I started loving peanut butter when I was wrestling in high school at Fenwick in Oak
Okay.
Park, and I used to crush these cinnamon raisin bagels from Panera
Oh
with
yeah. Yeah,
peanut
for
butter.
sure.
So good. After weigh-ins, because I'd like cut all this weight, and then I'd get down hungry, and I wanted something like very substantial, and I'd load these bagels up with peanut butter, just destroy them after weigh-ins.
Okay. Got
And
it.
yeah, and so always been like fitness guy. Love the natural like protein aspect of peanut butter. But as I started eating more and kind of go on my own fitness journey, I didn't like what was kind of on the market. Either you have peanut butters with a bunch of added oils like palm oils that aren't great for the environment, or additives like emulsifiers and things to give it that buttery consistency. And otherwise, you have peanut butters with that are all natural, but they have a weird consistency as well. Like they have oil separation, they kind of get hard. Um, you have to mix it back in. It's a whole process. So
It's like a
I
whole
started.
workout in itself, trying to mix those together, those containers. I know what you're
Oh my
talking
god,
about.
it's the worst. You
Yeah.
get the knife in there. You're going around. It's like 15 minutes later, you have oil on your shirt, and your like forearms are on fire.
Yeah.
Your peanut butter still isn't really mixed that well, and it's gonna like separate in a couple of days.
100%.
Yeah, and yeah, so I set out to make my own. I started making it in my apartment, and I my roommates were saying, this stuff is great. You should try and sell it. And that's exactly what I started doing. And people seem to really like it. And guy right here,
There it is. There it is. The
just
smooth
rolling with
stuff.
it,
Love it.
baby.
So that's interesting. So you had no intention necessarily when you first started messing with it to like start a company. You just were like, I don't like what's out there, so I'm gonna make my own.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm really motivated at right now and for the foreseeable future about this endeavor, is because I've tried some entrepreneurial things in the past. I tried to do some stuff in real estate, and I'm not sure I was coming at it at the right kind of angle, but I feel like with this, I'm coming at it at the right angle. It feels very organic. I've heard a lot of other successful, or not that I'm really successful at this point, but I've heard of other successful entrepreneurs in all sorts of fields that are successful because they're not satisfied with what's in the marketplace, and they have an idea of how to make the marketplace better, and they push that idea because they think that it can help people. And that's kind of the attitude that I'm taking with my product. Is I didn't really like what's out there, so I started making it for myself, and now I want to share it with people.
Love that. No, that's really cool, man. I think it's cool too. I was thinking when you were saying I didn't think about the timeline being at the beginning of COVID, but I've thought it's really interesting. There are people who have done that with COVID, and then I think some people look back and are like, shit, I should have done something with all this time. I mean, I like this podcast. I started it at the beginning of COVID too, because I was like, I'm gonna take
Oh,
the
nice.
time that I spend commuting, like the hour in the morning, hour at night. Like if I spent 2 hours a day, just that alone, I think I could finally do a podcast, and like that's
Oh,
how this
really?
became a thing. But it's
That's
funny
sweet. I
because
didn't know
it's
that.
it's cool that I didn't know that you did this because of COVID, but that's wild. So I guess let's back up too. So you you are messing around in your apartment and you're making this peanut butter. How did you? Because I'm sure what's on a lot of people's minds. And before I tried your product, which by the way, thank you, you gave me and Kelly some. It's phenomenal. I've
Absolutely.
actually almost crushed all of it because it's so good.
I love it.
And but I think the first thing I have to imagine would be like you have these two types of peanut butters, one that is full of shit, really, and the other
Yeah.
ones that you have to mix together. So I'd be so curious to understand like your first few batches, like how did you just start researching online? Like how do you make something that you don't have to mix but still made up of good ingredients? Or like how did that process go at the beginning of even figuring out like why is there nothing else on the market that's like what I want?
Yeah. It was kind of interesting. So I've always been a food person. Like my dad is a chef. I grew up making all sorts of food and always making homemade stuff, homemade bread, all that kind of thing, all that stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, and so when I was making in my apartment, I was always making something like all sorts of food. And so I always wanted to make peanut butter, and so I tried it with I like bought 5 pounds of peanuts one time, and I like just looked at a video online, and you kind of have to you essentially just blend peanuts in a blender if you're making small batches, and like the more that you blend it, the more that it breaks down, and it like gets kind of like it releases oil and becomes buttery,
Okay.
and yeah, so I was experimenting with it in my blender, and I was like adding a little bit of oil and like some honey, and over the course of the year, I kind of got it how I liked it, and I kind of knew my own process, and yeah, so I would add a little bit of oil, and then I was like getting these. I started ordering these like 25-pound cases of peanuts to my apartment,
And
and
where'd you order them from? Like where do you
it's like
buy
this
that
place
many
called.
peanuts?
Yeah, it's kind of funny to like show up in our like lobby is like a 25-pound case of peanuts. People be like, "What is that?" But no, it's sort of like this restaurant supplier called Websterant,
Got it. Okay.
and it's actually a pretty funny story. Like on I think it's Super Bowl Sunday or something. Um, it was Super Bowl Sunday. I had a party at my house, and on Super Bowl Sunday, I got a case of peanuts, and because I was up, and so my friend Joe, uh, who's also Italian, he saw the case of peanuts, and he was like, "We're gonna start calling you Tony Peanuts," because I don't know if you ever watched the show The Sopranos. There's a, a character named Paulie Walnuts in The Sopranos.
Oh,
So
I've actually never seen The Sopranos. Crazy enough.
oh really?
Yeah,
It's an amazing show. It's so funny,
I
but
need to watch it.
you should.
So that's where the name of the brand comes from.
That's where the name, and most people don't get it because like they don't most people haven't seen it or they just don't put it together, but
But that makes
it's
sense.
almost
I
like
mean, yeah.
yeah, it's like kind of an inside joke to some extent between like me and my good buddy Joe. And he was like, "Yeah, you should call it. We're gonna start calling you Tony Peanuts." It was like on Super Bowl Sunday, and like a couple of weeks later, I like slapped a label on one of the like a mason jar, um, and I like gave it to him with the name on it, and it was a joke at
Yeah.
first, and then yeah, I just
Oh,
ran
so
with
really,
it.
so it wasn't even like that was at the time wasn't even the plan to use it. It was just like a joke, and then you're like, wait, that could just be the name.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was like, oh, this is funny. I'm gonna put like a muscular nut on here and call it Tony Peanuts, like Joe was joking about, and yeah, it's hilarious. It was like it was absurd, and then Joe bought some, and then like some more people bought some. I was like, all right, I guess I'll just run with this. It's kind
Yeah.
of funny.
That's so
Yeah,
crazy. Okay, got it. So, so right away, I
yeah.
mean, you're making it in your apartment. When you say sell it, were you just like telling people about it? Did you have a website? Like, how did you start selling it?
It was really just like some friends. I like have a small Instagram following. I just like throw some videos on there, and some people would ask about it, and then I just like sell them a jar, or just come up with like some random number that I thought was appropriate, and
I
yeah,
mean, that's
like
how it works in the
not
beginning,
any,
right? I mean, it's not like you have anyone telling you what to sell it for.
yeah, no cost calculation at all. but yeah, people just my best friend's girlfriend's mom was a big supporter, and it was funny because she's like from Georgia where they grow peanuts, so she's an
Okay. Yeah.
avid peanut butter eater, and she was like, "Oh, you should sell this," and yeah, so then I did. She bought some, and yeah, it took some figuring out. Like once I started actually making it, how to transfer the process over from my blender to actually being able to make it. So that was interesting. Going back to your question of like, how did you figure out like how to make it at first? You know?
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's kind of still like that it maybe actually if we back up a little bit to explain to everybody listening or watching, like what is different? Like explain to everybody because I didn't really understand it when you told me, and then when I opened it and tried it, I was like, oh, I get it. Can you explain to everyone why
Yeah.
your peanut butter is different than what else is on the market? Because it is very different in the consistency and taste.
Yeah. I appreciate that question, first of all, because every time I explain it, it like helps solidify in my own head what
Sure.
I'm actually trying to do. Um, but really, what is different is like when you buy natural peanut butter, a lot of times it'll get like very hard in the fridge because there's no they don't there's no double processing and there's no um, added oil. And if there is added oil, it's just a little bit of palm oil. So it gets really hard in the fridge, but then it separates at room temperature or doesn't taste quite right because it has palm oil. So mine is
It
different
just to
because
ask because I think some people might ask this. Why is palm oil bad?
palm trees are like an endangered species. Um, that's a good question. I should look more into it. But
Oh, so they
if you go
actually like
on
cut
like
down
any
palm trees for palm oil?
yeah,
Okay, didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I've heard
Um,
it's funny. It's one of those things where like I've heard people say like it's not good, but I had never have known why.
yeah. I also think like the ecosystems that like they cut them down from like those environments are very dependent on palm trees, maybe.
Okay.
Um,
And is it actually like bad
so
to eat? Is it like not like from a, like a nutrients perspective? Do you know? Is it like not necessarily the best thing for
no,
you?
no, I think it's like it's equivalent to the peanut oil that I put in my peanut butter from a nutritional standpoint.
Okay.
Um, but if you ever like, I bought a couple peanut butters with palm oil, and I actually I thought the taste would be. I thought I wouldn't notice the taste, but it has like a soapy taste. I don't.
Oh,
Maybe
really?
I'm
Like just if you just
crazy,
eat it, it
but
does?
like in the peanut butter, it imparts like a soapy taste. I don't.
Huh. Oh,
Maybe I'm
that's
crazy. I
interesting.
don't know.
No, I
Yeah,
mean probably
like
not, right? I mean, it's probably if you taste it, I'm sure that's a consistent thing. But that's really
yeah,
interesting.
I've eaten a lot of it. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's right. Okay, so the palm oil is
um,
one thing. And then the other question was the like double processing. Like for people who don't know anything about peanut butter, what does that mean?
yeah, so like peanuts have so much oil in them intrinsically that the more you process it, the more oil is like extracted from the nut or legume or whatever you want to call it. So a lot of natural peanut butters tend to be on the coarse side because they
Okay.
just process it once. So because of that, like it's more solid than mine, for example. Or there's some others on the market that double process as well. But if you single process it when you refrigerate it, it's going to get hard. Like if you buy the Smuckers all
Yeah.
natural, you like stir it up, put it in the fridge, or like the Justin's honey one, it's going to get rock hard. And it's when you take it out, you're going to have to microwave it, or you're going to have to let it sit and then spread it. Um,
Right.
which I hated. Like, and you can't really get like a nice spoonful. I love to eat PB by the spoonful.
Okay.
And it's not like spreadable. And I hated that it was like really hard. And then the separation problem drove me crazy. So with mine, my like my thought is that refrigeration solves this like problem with peanut butter, because if you process it in the correct way, like I'm doing, you double process it and you add a little bit of extra oil, it's going to get to the right consistency. So when you put it in the fridge, and you take it out, it's perfectly spreadable. But like if you put it on a piece of warm toast, it's going to also be warm. Like it's not going to still be cold, like something that's really dense and hard, like an all natural Smuckers, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. It is interesting you say that because
it's the consistency, really.
I haven't had it on warm toast. What I normally do, I have like it's like part of what my diet thing I do. I have like a banana and peanut butter like before I go to bed, like every single night. And so I've started just like I put just a shit ton all over my peanut or all over my bananas, and it's just so damn good. It's like it does. It's already in
Eating
a
bananas is the freaking best.
100%. It's I don't people that
It's
don't
like a
do it. I don't
dessert, but
understand.
it's not a dessert.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So,
I know, Lance.
but it's perfect for that because it is. It's like I can take it right out of the fridge. I put it on, and it's not like freezing cold, but it spreads perfectly. It was like
Yeah.
mind blown the first time I did it. I was like, it's so interesting. It's so different than all the other, nut butters I've used before. So
People have
did
called
you
it
did
life
you like
changing, Shane.
stumble into it? Like, I guess that's the big question is like, because this is to me, this is so it's so different. And the reason I wanted to have you on here is because it's such a unique way to go about a category that just has tons of players in it. And you found a way to make, a differentiated product. So yeah, did you just like stumble into it kind of and like test and learn and just kind of figured out how to do it and to solve the problem that you were looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a learning process for sure. But I
Yeah.
I spent like probably 2 months trying to figure out machine, the right machinery that I need at this time.
Yeah, sure.
Um, and it's gonna continue. I mean, just to process the nuts, like the dispensing and all that good stuff is a separate question. But yeah, I spent like 2 months just trying to figure out what machines are right, what combination of machines is right, to process them, because it's not clear, and like the machinery in the as funny as it sounds, like the friggin' like nut processing industry is crazy. You have machines from China that are like 2 grand. You have like machines that are American made that are like 35 grand.
Wow.
You have things in between that you can combine that are like $700 and like a grand. Like you have stuff that's all over the place and you don't really know the quality of it. You have used stuff on eBay. So yeah, I guess I stumbled upon peanut butter firstly,
Right.
just because I love peanut butter, and entrepreneurship. But then I continue to kind of stumble upon solutions to the problem that I'm trying to solve, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're great at solving problems, is what it sounds like, Tony. This is great. Are you so
You know,
you're obviously earlier on, and we've kind of like walked through, what the product is and why it's different. Um, I mean, I've looked at it a bunch of times, but for people who are new to the brand, listening to it, you do have a website. And so you're selling on there. Is that now that you're what 10 months to a year into this, is that basically your largest source of where your sales come from today? Is the website?
yeah, yeah. I mean, really, it's just it's on my website, and then um, word of mouth growth,
Yeah.
and my little Instagram. It's kind of crazy how much you can do with just a small following that is interested in your product. I mean, I've been going through more peanut butter than I can produce for the last like 2 months, 3 months, really.
Congrats. That's exciting.
Because yeah,
And
yeah,
are you
it's
and I
awesome.
guess
It's
to
been
answer
great.
the other question people probably have is I'm assuming you're not still doing this in your apartment. So have you scaled up production a little bit?
No, not doing it in my apartment. I quickly moved out of my apartment, actually.
Well, that's actually a good
Yeah,
part of
so
the
I'm
story too.
fortunate.
You should tell people that part because you actually moved out and you moved back home, right?
Yeah. So it's been an interesting part of like my life in general, is because um, I'm fortunate because my dad, as I mentioned, is a chef, and he runs a catering banquet business out of this non-for-profit located in Stone Park called Casa Italia.
Oh, cool.
And they have, yeah, um, it's this big cultural center that's been around for a while, um, that has some donors that have built this really nice commercial kitchen for use for banquets and like cultural activities, dinner, dances, stuff like that. That my dad uh, makes food for and
Okay.
runs his business for, that I've helped him with in addition to this. So I've been exposed to that and been there. We're helping my dad for the last couple of years, and I kind of had a flashbulb moment and thought like, hey, I can use this facility um, for something of my own. And so when I moved out of my apartment and moved back to River Grove, I'm right there, right by the facility, and yeah, I go right over there, and we have a great setup. We have like 3 commercial ovens, and like a good area for processing and packaging, and yeah, it's been awesome. Very lucky to have it. Helps keep costs low because kind of splitting it with my dad. Um,
That's awesome.
and
It's crazy, like
yeah,
when you get started, right? It's like those are like the kind of little things can be smart decisions very early. You know what I mean? As far as like making money and profitability, having some of those
yeah,
situations can help you scale as you grow and grow and grow versus possibly spending, a majority of your profits on a commercial kitchen that you don't have any connection to and you're spending tons of money to keep up with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was just talking about that um, with some friends. I was like, these shared commercial kitchens are so expensive. I don't know how anybody gets off their ground doing it. Like they charge up the nose for a couple hours of use, and like
Yeah.
a couple
I
hours
don't think a lot
of
of
use.
brands
Like what do you?
do, unfortunately. I think the sad thing is a lot of brands kind of die because they can't keep up with how much it costs to run
Yeah,
it out of. You know what I mean? Even at RX, we looked at
yeah,
one in the West Loop, just for like kind of some innovation stuff. And I just remember like running the numbers for us, and I was just like, it doesn't even make sense. Like I don't understand how like it was going to be too
yeah,
expensive for us, even just to use like funding we had, let alone being a young startup brand where you don't have, money from other products you've sold. I'm like, I didn't understand it either. I'm like, I really like, it just didn't make sense. So good for you. I mean, that's awesome early
yeah.
on
You're
to be able to
just
do that.
paying. Yeah, because another route people go for like these kind of startups is like the production run
Mm-hmm.
um, route, which is really expensive too. Is like you find a co-packer to make your product. You give them all the directions and recipes and stuff, and they make it. But they have these really big minimums that I don't know how you forecast for if you're just getting off the ground. It's like you have to spend 50 grand to do a product run. It's like how do you forecast that with like
Mm-hmm.
5 grand in sales or whatever you might have if you're a startup? And yeah, so it's a good place to be right now, and I think I can continue to really expand there and add some key pieces of machinery and equipment, and labor to keep growing.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, it's a great facility, and I'm happy that I have access to it. It's been a major key for sure.
definitely. No, it sounds like it. That's awesome. So for you, we understand the facility a little bit, how you're trying to scale it up. What is, what's the next? I know it's hard to think probably in like, the timeline of how quickly you've gotten this up and running, but now that you have a product that's great, you're getting some word of mouth around Chicago. You have a website. What is like the next 6 months look like for you and the brand, and like how you're going to continue to grow it?
Yeah, so I think I need to start kind of like outsourcing things a bit. Right now, I'm kind of doing everything, making the product, running my social media, promoting, doing sales, getting people the product, packaging. So I think some two key aspects that I'm trying to kind of focus in on are working with people to get my product out and on the internet, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and using people that might have better accounts than mine or what I'm capable of doing right now to create content and work with me to make recipes and do photos, videos, and create media that I can reuse. So I'm not putting all of my time into making content. And then also kind of like getting my packaging dialed in. I just put in a really large order for some packaging that I'm pretty excited about.
Exciting.
It's like wide mouth. Yeah,
Is
wide
it
mouth
new?
jars, glass jars. Yeah, so right now these guys,
Love it.
they're
There we go.
okay. Packaging has been, yeah, it's been crazy during COVID. Like everything has been sold out, especially plastic, which is fine because I'm doing glass now. But yeah, so a lot of things have been sold out. So I kind of found this guy just because I had to. And the taper at the top is not my favorite. It's a little bit too like long as well. So I have these new wide mouth jars, 32 ounce and 16 ounce one coming in that are going to be just right. And I'm really pumped about that. And so once I get my packaging a little bit more dialed in, I'm going to try to start really hitting up some retail
Yeah.
and working with retail to get my product in there, because right now I'm losing a lot of time and energy getting individuals products. And I think a real way to scale, if I have some packaging and 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 uh, and talking with some stores, is to be able to have hubs, even if it's just 5 stores in key areas where I have some customers already, that I can get 5 cases, 10 cases, and then the customers can buy from there,
Definitely.
rather than having to ship and deliver and figure out all sorts of methods for getting people
Yeah.
peanut butter, driving around messing up my bumper because I'm going too fast.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say a funny side story as you talk about trying to, get into retail. I mean, you were nice enough to drop off some free product, and you literally showed up outside my house, had a case in the back of the car. I'm like, this is what you do on Sundays. He's like, yeah, I drive around Chicago and deliver peanut butter to people. I'm like, that's scrappy. I love it. I mean, it's the scrappy way to do
Yeah,
it.
man.
I mean, and that's kind of the cool thing, even about, I would say, early on for you, I can imagine, just thinking out loud from like growing in retail is, especially like in the west suburbs of Chicago, there's just so many different types of even smaller scale grocery stores that I'm sure are more open to, trying local brands. And then you have your Fresh Times, your Whole Foods, all that sprinkled in that you could always try to sell into. There's a lot of opportunities, right? It's a big category.
Yeah, man. It's been crazy. I've not even really tried at all because I've just been like so busy just trying to get people their peanut butter, get people
Mhm.
their peanut butter. Like,
100%.
um,
Does it have to be
so
refrigerated
yeah.
before you open it?
So it really doesn't have to be refrigerated at all. It's just my recommendation
Okay.
because that is the point of view that I'm coming from. I definitely have people that don't refrigerate it. It's more runny for sure. It's definitely on the runnier side.
But like you could,
It's not my favorite.
I was thinking like, so for you, are you gonna try to like, will it sit on the peanut butter shelf
Oh,
with every other
I see
brand?
what you're saying. Yeah, so that's been an interesting thought. And I'm not sure how to go about it because I did meet with a grocery store or two, and kind of proposed the idea of having it in the refrigerated section,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't too hot on it. They didn't dismiss it, but yeah, essentially what I would be proposing is that they put it next to the butter rather than next to the peanut butter.
Ah,
Um,
okay. Yeah.
and I'm not
It's
sure
just
how
an
that would
interesting,
go.
like, I think that's probably like, that's where one of my big questions was because it makes sense now that I know what the product is. I'm sure if I saw it, if I randomly saw your peanut butter next to butter, I'd be like, what? Did they like, they screw this up? Or be
Yeah,
interesting though, but it might catch people's eye
yeah,
too, right? I mean, like, it might be, if you can get someone to take a leap of faith with you and do it, it could be pretty cool because I think people would probably, it'd stand out for sure. Be like, wait, is it a peanut butter next to, butter, to your point?
yeah. And it's I think that'll be the real testing ground for the product, honestly, is because like a product like this, you can only scale, I think, so much going direct to consumer, just because of the margins and the price point and everything, and the price point in general in the market. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
was gonna say, where do you want to sit on shelf price point wise? Have you figured all that out yet?
yeah. Figuring it out. I'm kind of re-crunching my numbers as I get this new packaging. Um, but I don't want to sit too much higher above what I'm selling it for, which is 850, just because peanut butter, even the premium ones, don't really sell that much higher. And part of why I got into this is to provide something that has value. Like I want to provide a peanut butter that is affordable, but also takes makes your life easier and tastes awesome.
That's great. No, I love that.
So
It's a good angle to go at.
yeah, so ideally, I don't know, like probably 9, I think is where I would have to be, maybe a little bit more, at
And
this stage in the
is that
game, just
for
because
that's
of
for the larger jar?
yeah, it's 32-ounce
And,
jar.
and what's the smaller one you gave me, the crunchy one?
So that one's 12, but that jar is no longer in commission.
Okay,
I don't have any more, and
got
it's
it.
going to this like 16-ounce wide mouth one. 16 ounce is more standard
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah,
Got it. No, that makes sense. That's awesome. No, it sounds like, I mean, you definitely have this is all spinning and this is a work in progress, which is, I mean, that's the fun of what you're doing. I can only imagine.
yeah, man, it's interesting. Every day there's something new to
Yeah.
think about, and yeah, it's awesome.
We'll give everyone, as we kind of like get towards the end, give everyone an idea of, I love this, especially on earlier stage companies. Like, what's been one of the biggest hurdles that's come up that you kind of had to like take a step back and be like, am I still going to do this? Like, is this what I want to do? Have you had any of those major setbacks yet?
It's been interesting. Like, it's been fairly it's been fairly smooth, pun intended. Like as far as like growing and making progress, like there haven't been any big financial disasters, just because I'm taking it really slow and like not overspending and making sure that something will make sense if I'm spending money on it. But one of the big things that was a challenge for sure is figuring out the machinery that I needed to buy in about July or August. Just because I had no knowledge of machinery beyond my blender.
Okay.
It
Sure.
might have been even earlier than July, maybe like June or something. Um, and so yeah, once my blender, I like broke like 4 blenders, and I had no idea what to do, and there was so much variety of what is out there in terms of price points, and potential solutions. At one point, I was looking at importing something from China, and then I saw some of the importing fees and like the custom fees and all that stuff, and I had to reconsider it. But then also some of the commercial stuff in the U.S. that you could buy brand new, just because it was so expensive, didn't make sense for me to pull the trigger on with so few sales.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge, and after I broke, it was like 4 different blenders of varying quality. And after I broke the fourth one, I was like, I don't know what to do here. Do I just give this up? And
Yeah.
I kept doing research, and it was actually the thing that my dad recommended from the beginning that I was like, oh, that's not going to work. And yeah, it's been working great so
Parents
far.
sometimes are the most
It's a little bit
wise,
labor
man.
intensive. Yeah, should have listened to him from the onset. But
Right.
yeah, it's a little bit labor intensive. I don't know how scalable it is at the moment. I'll definitely have to revisit the process again probably soon, as I'm getting tapped out here with my time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big hurdle for sure.
Got it. No, that makes sense. And um, as far as the brand, the team, is it just you right now? Is it only you, or do you have any other, people on payroll, staff, whatever you want to call it?
No, just me. My dad helps me a fair bit, because he's at the facility all the time, so he'll help me with production in his spare time. But I don't pay him.
Love it.
I just
Yeah.
reciprocate
You should
with
probably get some peanut butter, I'm
free
sure.
labor, free labor for him, free peanut butter.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I'll work with like some people on social media every once in a while, for some arrangement, um, that we come up with for posting or stuff like that. Um, and yeah, I mean, other than that, it's just me
Love it.
hustling.
Yeah, that's great, man. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Good for you. I mean, you and I talked about this briefly when we saw each other in person, but I said, from my experience now being at RX for a few years, I feel like and just talking to a lot of different founders of companies, if you like step one of being successful to me in the food industry seems to be like in today's world is you have to have good food. Like it has to taste good and it has to be a good product. And then after that, like there's tons of things you got to figure out, but that's got to be number one. And you hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, it's phenomenal peanut butter. I've loved it. I'm telling people about it. So I'm pumped for you because I think you have a great product and now it's like just figuring out how to get it out to more people. So hopefully this podcast can be a little bit of a help to that too.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's good to get some ideas out there because I think about it every day and think about how I got here and what I'm trying to do with it. So it's good to verbalize it. And yeah, man, people nowadays don't like the crap. People like the good stuff nowadays. So
It's becoming
hopefully
more
I'm
and
in the
more
right
mainstream.
place at the right time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
really is. Like people do not people don't mess around with it, and like people are taking their health very seriously. And I think like the days are counting for a lot of these brands that generate crap,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm hoping. And yeah, um, good food, baby.
Right. I love it. I love it. So the last couple questions I always love to ask every founder that I have on here. The first one is I always lead with book, but you can, give a book, a podcast, whatever source of knowledge you would suggest to the audience. If you had to like just suggest one book, whatever, what would it be for everyone that's listening to take a look at? That's like impacted you or
Oh
like
wow,
it's really like, you've taken something away from it.
I wasn't expecting that question, Shane.
I like to come out of left field a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, if you're not like
Shoot,
if you're
man.
not someone that reads a book, like whatever it is, what's like the thing that like you like to go to learn new stuff?
Um, well, I do read a lot, but I'm gonna like the books that I don't know. I majored in philosophy in college, so like
Oh,
I don't
that's
know
cool.
how
No, but you know what?
how
No,
applicable
give
the
something that's impactful because like I think most people don't want to hear just like, oh, it's the same old like leadership book that everyone else suggests type of stuff.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so I partially came at this because I was interested in food in college, and I actually wrote my senior thesis paper on the food history of Italy.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I actually read a bunch of books by this author called Massimo Montanari, And he wrote all these great books about the history of Italy as seen through food. And he looks at like all these different types of food, like pasta and like pizza and all these things that are like stereotypical. And he like breaks down their history and examines all the people uh, and lineages and like agricultural economies that affected the food stuff and the populace that gathered around it. And I kind of reinterpreted the books and looked at the history of Italy and some products that are on the market today, like Nutella, super notable nut spread, or like Bacci is like the famous Italian chocolates, and kind of looked at like why are these important, like what is the culture behind these. And so like one of his books is called Il cibo come cultura, like food as culture.
Okay.
And he has a lot of great books interpreted into English. His last name is Montanari, and yeah, definitely not a conventional leadership book, but
That's
definitely
cool.
impactful for me. Yeah, and the product.
Love it. Okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's great. That's a good one. I appreciate you coming out of my left field question with a left field answer. I love that. That's great. That sounds really cool. Um,
Sometimes that's the best.
absolutely. Oh yeah. Well, something different. You know what I mean? Everyone hears like the same 10 books that everyone suggests. So that's
Yeah,
cool.
Robert Kiyosaki.
Love it. Appreciate it. The other one is, so this isn't even your full-time job. We've talked about this a little bit. So Tony's Peanuts is something you're building. You have another full-time job. You're a busy guy. What do you use to, like, what tools do you use to just like keep track of everything and get shit done? Whether it's just pen and paper, do you use apps? Like, how do you organize, doing all these different things you do?
Yeah, so one thing that has helped me enormously is uh, just being super methodical about my calendar. And I use Excel, and every day I go into Excel and block off my time by the half hour. And at the beginning of the day, I just look at what I'm trying to do that day to accomplish some of my larger goals. And each half hour, I say, okay, this is what I got to do now. And whether that half hour is part of a larger 2 hours of focus for a project, whatever, or if it's just a half hour that I need to spend on Instagram commenting on people's profiles or reaching out to people, whatever. Um, just making sure that it's broken down. And like this way, when I ever have a question of what do I need to be doing now, I just go back to my calendar and look, okay, right now I should be thinking about how to make my packaging better or whatever.
Oh,
So that has been huge. Like the more I adhere to the schedule and think of what needs to be done in concrete terms, the more effective I am for sure. Um, and then also like I can't say I can't say enough good things about Shopify. Shopify has been incredible. Like their integrations through their website for anyone that is trying to get a product off the ground or looking to start an e-commerce website, I 10 out of 10 recommend Shopify. It's amazing. Their shipping, the way that they integrate into other apps, the orders interface, the way that you can organize things on your website. It's just so easy and intuitive that it's just the best platform really for anyone that's building a website to sell stuff. I started selling stuff on I can't remember one of the other ones,
yeah.
and it was just kind of clunky and was taking a lot of time to do stuff. And I don't know code really, but even not knowing code, I can still go into the little like coding interface and change things around that need to be changed. So yeah,
Yeah,
schedule
Shopify is the shit. I've
Shopify.
made a website on
Amazing.
there.
Yeah,
I've invested heavily in Shopify. I'm all in shop. Yeah, I think they're the best.
Shopify for life.
Yeah.
Shopify is awesome.
And they're
Yep.
so far ahead. They're kind of like how Amazon got ahead of everybody else in
Yep.
e-commerce, like platforms as third-party sellers. I mean, Shopify is that way. I've tried Squarespace. I never ever had as good of a
Yeah.
return as I have with Shopify. I'm with you 100%. So you actually, and to
Yeah.
back up a little bit, I love that idea. I do the time blocking too. I don't do it on 30, but maybe I should try that. So do you make it in Excel and then move it to your calendar, or do you use Excel as your calendar?
I use Excel as my calendar, so I actually have I have a file that I have a file that I track a bunch of stuff in for Excel. So I pull it up every day. I just have it in the background of like while I'm doing stuff. I track like what I eat, like my workouts, my net worth, um, and then my schedule in this document. I just keep it up at all times. And yeah, it's great. I mean, there might be a better way to do it, but I actually I like don't use my calendar on my phone because it's just it's just my calendar, and I like having all that other stuff with my calendar.
Love it.
So
No,
yeah,
that's really
it's
cool.
a nice.
I'm a huge Excel fan, so I'm with you on that. Do you use Excel or do you use Google Sheets, or what are you on? You just hardcore Excel?
I think no, it's is it Google Sheets?
Because Google
Yeah, it's
Sheets would
Google
be
Sheets
like
technically.
it is Google Sheets. Yeah, yeah. It's well, 'cause you can get on your
Yeah,
phone
it
too,
is.
which is nice. And it updates
Yeah,
automatically. That's what I love. Google Sheets doesn't have all the like you can't go as deep if you're like modeling, like from a finance perspective, like there's a lot of shortcomings. But for everyday use, for like what it sounds like you're using it for, Google Sheets I think is the best. I like having I can go on my PC, then I can go to my Mac, I can go on my phone. It's all there, and it's always updated. So I love that. That's a cool idea. I like that. So every is it every morning you're setting up a calendar, or do you plan like weeks in advance? Like how do you do all that? Especially with 30 minutes, that's a lot of like planning.
yeah. I usually do every day. I'll usually like my routine before 8:30 is pretty just like no thinking. So
Sure.
around 8:30, I'll set it up for the day. This reminds me of another book which is more applicable to people.
Okay.
I read Gary Keller's book. He's like founder of Keller Williams Real Estate. I think it's just called like How to Be a Millionaire or something. It's something like very
Okay.
straightforward. It's like or how to be a millionaire or something like that. And it's a great book. There's a lot of great tips about personal finance. And one very intuitive tip that he gives is track your net worth. And I never thought about that because I was like, oh, like people that track their net worth are rich, like very rich. And it's like, I'm not very rich, so why would I do that? But then he talks about it, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. And so I started doing it, and it's been great. You just have it makes you a lot more conscious of where you're spending your money
Hmm.
and where your money's coming from and how much is coming in from different places. And
It's
yeah,
kind of I
highly
always think it's one of
recommend
those
that
things
book.
too where it's like you don't know where you're at until you track it type of mentality. I'm a big tracker as
Yeah,
well. But net worth's a funny one because I agree. I remember my first job out of college in 2014, one of my coworkers who was a few years older than me, he had built one for him and his wife. And I felt like he was always like 3 or 4 years ahead of like through our 3 years of working together, like him and his wife were just like 3 or 4 years ahead of where like me and Kelly were at. And so it was funny because I started doing that too. And it's cool. It's like even if your net worth is tiny or negative or whatever your situation is, like just tracking it and getting, the hope is
yeah,
you're like improving it over time, right? Because you realize when you start
exactly.
tracking it like that, you realize how long a life can be. And you're like, well, if I start tracking it now and building towards a better future 10 years from now, I'll be like, well, thank God I didn't wait 10 years to look at it.
Yeah. And I likened it to tracking the food that I eat or like tracking my workouts because I love working out and getting in shape is like the people that do that usually tend to be in good shape. Like not always, but like a bodybuilder tracks what they eat. Like,
100%, man.
so
Oh, yeah.
if you do it over time, you're going to become that person.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Love it. Very
yeah, man.
cool, man. Well, thank you for all that. That's great. People will definitely get a ton of value out of that. The last question and most important question, how can people get involved with you, the brand, and where can people buy Tony Peanuts or Tony's Peanuts?
Tony Peanuts.
Tony Peanuts. There we go.
Definitely follow me on Instagram at Tony Peanuts PB. I also have a Facebook page that is a work in progress. Tony Peanuts. You can email me at tony@tonypeanuts.com. You can text me 630-667-7677.
Bold move, my friend.
Or you can
You're the first person to ever throw the number out on here, I think. So let's see what happens.
Hey man,
I love it.
sales
Hopefully,
are sales.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, shoot me an email, shoot me a DM, goes down in the DMs,
Love it.
whatever.
That's fantastic.
You
And
can
I'll
buy
go ahead.
the website until I get into grocery stores. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And I as always, I'll add all that information to the show notes so people can find it after listening to this. But Tony, thank you for the time, my friend. I'm glad we got to finally do this and get you on the podcast. And I'm pumped to see what you guys do, man. Love the product. I think you have a bright future with this. So good luck with everything, and let's stay in touch. But thanks for coming on, man.
Likewise, bro. Thank you.